It's that time of the week again. Welcome, everybody, to the Atheists for Liberty channel here online. My name is Thomas Sheedy, president of Atheists for Liberty. We have a great episode and a great guest coming on to have a good chat. I always like to point out that we have a guy named Justin Vakula. He's one of our directors here at Atheists for Liberty. He's fantastic at recommending numerous different guests on the channel. So we're beefing up the series. We're being more consistent as to when we go live, to give you guys a lot of good content, to really make things entertaining for us all, and to provide all of you with new information as we proceed through the culture wars here, as we discuss religion, politics, and more. Not only does Atheists for Liberty fight for Enlightenment values, we seek to learn from the greatest minds of the 21st century. And we're doing that week by week with all of your support and all of your ideas and all of your contributions to this amazing, wonderful organization that we have here throughout the country. So it really means a lot that all of you are continuing to support Atheists for Liberty, continuing to be a part of the good fight, and continuing to just be an amazing audience. Like last week, when I had Sam Westrup on, you guys kept putting in more and more and more comments and questions, so we just couldn't get to everything. And that makes me really happy. That makes the team at Atheists for Liberty really happy, because there's a lot of demand, and a lot of you are interested in what we have to provide. So it really does mean a lot there. Our member of the week is Bill Chapman. Guys, be like Bill and become a member of Atheists for Liberty today at atheistsforliberty.org. All contributions are tax deductible. We're a 501c3 nonprofit. We care about free speech, free thinking, and freedom for all. We normalize atheism, preserve free thinking, safeguard secularism, and advance individual liberty. And we're succeeding every single week because, unlike other think tanks, unlike other movements and organizations, we really are genuine in our grassroots efforts. So anytime somebody emails me or says, hey, I'm so happy that I finally found a group of people who think like I do, finally, it's just a breath of fresh air. So it means a lot. So be like Bill Chapman, who's a good free thinking member of ours, and become a member today. It really does mean a lot. So without further ado, let me bring on our guest. So Zachary Elwood is the host of the psych podcast, People Who Read People, with his research into online deception featured in the New York Times, Washington Post, and more. He's also the author of Diffusing American Anger. Zach Elwood, welcome to the channel.
Hey, Thomas. Thanks for having me.
So gave that shout out to Justin. I really do appreciate Justin bringing you on. Anytime that he comes on in, he gives recommendations. He sends literal screenshots of, Thomas, you have to talk to him about this. Elwood is known for this and this and this. I very much always am sure to go into my chats with Justin to make sure that we discuss the right topics, and the right topics I think we are going to discuss, although they might be a little bit of a headache in the process. I've been on Twitter a little too much lately over the last 48 hours.
That's never feels good.
It never does. No, but I guess getting into the first segment of that. So when Justin was looking through your Twitter feed, when we were thinking of topics, something came across your Twitter feed that definitely is something I've seen, unfortunately, a little too often. I had Actual Justice Warrior on, my friend Sean Fitzgerald, a few months ago, where we talked about the topic of Satanism. And the word Satan and satanic is continuously being seen more and more online on social media platforms, being said at a more frequent rate than at any point ever. I think the tweet that you shared was some person complaining about having to scan a QR code when you park in Whole Foods, somebody calling that satanic. And just that phrase, that term, it's becoming more normalized more and more throughout the culture wars. When religious discussions are being had online, on Twitter, on YouTube, and places like that, the word Satan, the word Satanism comes up. And unfortunately, it's attributed to people like ourselves. So my question for you, Zach, would be, in your opinion, do you think that there is a new satanic panic?
Yeah, I think it's, I like to be really humble and uncertain about these things because, like you say, I've noticed a lot of this stuff on social media, but then, it begs the question of how much of it is a perception thing, how much of it is, for example, like more conservative people coming to Twitter recently. Like these kinds of things sometimes are really uncertain to me. And it'd be interesting to study. I'm sure there might be some surveys or even like Google, Google research about like is searches for Satanism and demonic stuff going up over time in Google Trends, so yeah, but all that said, I mean, I think it does seem like that stuff is on the rise, and it kind of makes sense from a political polarization, emotional polarization perspective, because when you have polarization happening, like more and more people are going to be pushed towards the outsides of these beliefs, so you're going to have more people that are influenced by their super polarized people that see evidence of evil or demonic stuff around them. And so, I think there is that kind of like contagious aspect of these kinds of things. And yeah, it's disturbing how often I see that, like including, since Elon took over Twitter, I just see promoted to me because I interact with a lot of extremely polarized people. So I get more polarized people promoted to me. So I am regularly promoted like these people I don't follow who are like, look at this demonic thing, like it's disturbing to me how often I see that and see they have like thousands of likes and
right.
Kind of
like that's the first word that comes to mind. Seriously.
Right. Yeah, it's so bizarre. I mean, it does, it is worrying. It's like you can see what bothers people, and getting back to the polarization thing, it makes liberal people think that is what conservatives and Trump voters are like, that because you start to form these perceptions. It's like, well, they might be, some small percentage of the group who actually will say things like that, but that becomes like what liberals are fighting against in a lot of people's minds. That's what polarization kind of does to us. So that part of the dynamic is interesting too. Just this continual ramping up of emotions. Yeah.
Do you think that in relation to Satanism as well, I guess you could say the woke side or the social justice side, especially the media, the theater industry, the mass media, they've also purposely gone out of their way to try to look satanic? I know there were a few shows and award shows recently that were kind of showcased on the news. That showed people like literally going out of their way to wear like satanic costumes, devil costumes, just to get a rise out of people, just to get a rise out of maybe people on the right, or a rise out of their religious, Christian counterparts, for instance, or Islamic counterparts. Do you think that there's been a frequent increase in that as well in your experiences?
I mean, I do think that is a big part of how the polarization dynamics work. It's like when there's a lot of anger, when you have a lot of this us versus them anger, you're kind of instinctually driven to do things that trigger the other side, right? It's like we want to show them, that we can do these things, that these things aren't as bad as they think they are, whatever, whatever the motivations are. But I think it boils down to being like, we'll show them basically like a lot of emotional aspects. And I see that a lot on the right and the left, where it's like, I think the children, the drag shows for children thing is another aspect of that, where it's like, how much was that really happening up until recently? And I feel like it's gone up just because some liberal people are like, they might not even want to go to them, but they're like, we'll go to them we'll show those conservatives.
It's like, drag queen story hours here to stay.
How many parents really want to take their kids to that? I mean, I find it hard to believe that there's that many people.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, I was going to say, yeah, in a book, I think it was, it's called The Anatomy of Peace, which is a really good book about conflict resolution. And it talked about, us versus them divides in there. And one of the points it makes in there, and I think probably in other works too, but it really made a eloquent argument about how we're basically, when we have a lot of us versus them energy, we basically bring out the things in the disliked party or group that they're kind of driven to do things that trigger us and bother us. And so we kind of induce the very behavior, we become the people that they very much dislike, and they become the people that we very much dislike, and you can kind of see that on social media on a small scale when people are purposely trying to kind of trigger people, and you're like, I don't think this person really believes this. They're just saying it to get a rise out of somebody, but we do more and more of that kind of thing, and so we kind of like become the, you know, the bad guys of the other group's mind, right?
And do you think that's inherent within human nature or inherent within our society, or do you think that that's just greatly increased due to the current culture that we're in?
I think it's a fundamental human nature thing. I mean, human groups and nations have been so polarized so frequently, throughout history, and even now, research shows that most of the countries in the world have become increasingly polarized since 2005. So I think it is. That's one thing I talk about in my book, that it's recognizing that this is just such a human element to us. It kind of gets back to that whole people talk in sociology or anthropology or whatever about how you get above a certain group, right? Like there's only a certain size group. I can't remember what it was, like 150, and above that, that above that number, like you can't know everybody in the group, so you start forming into cliques and tribes and stuff. So I think it gets back to that, and then the fundamental nature of, like, once you start sorting into two different groups, it's kind of a dynamic, natural feedback process where you're sorting and you see the other group as increasingly alien, and you start defining yourself by, well, we're not like them, and they're separate. So it's just this natural feedback process, and then it gets into kind of extreme territory. But yeah, to answer your question, I think it is a fundamental human thing, and I think a lot of people would say it's might view that in a kind of pessimistic way, like we're fundamentally driven to fight each other. I mean, that's one way to view it, but you could also view it as, the things that make us fight each other are also our loyalty and our love for our side, our group, right? And so it's like the same things that make us social and loving creatures can be the same things that make us fight each other. So you can't, it's kind of hard to separate those two, right? Yeah, so I think it is very much a human nature aspect.
And I was actually, speaking of what you just mentioned, I was about to actually ask, if there were any overall positives to that behavior. And in many senses, from a political context, I would say so, to a degree. For instance, atheism has become normalized so much throughout the country due to kind of a reactionary kind of activism that easily gets the attention of the media, easily gets the cameras on them. Sometimes maybe doing things that are purposely offensive or purposely gets a debate going allows discussions to be had to further your agenda. And maybe it's not even an extreme agenda in your view. Maybe it's just the right agenda or a moderate agenda for decent, normal people. But we have to have these kind of extreme tactics and engage in kind of a polarization, even if it's in the name of anti-polarization.
Right. Well, I think it's, I think I like to concentrate on the two dimensions of it, right? Because it's like you've got the belief polarization, which is, we're always going to be polarized at a belief level in some way. That's healthy and normal. And then you've got like the emotional kind of like visceral dislike and hatred of the other group, which I see as two different dimensions, right? Because you can strongly disagree with people, even think they're horrible without viewing them as if they're evil or demonic, right? Like you can see the humanity in them even when you think they're horrible, right? And I think that's in a lot of conflict resolution books that I respect, like the one I mentioned, The Anatomy of Peace. It uses the phrase of like your heart being at war with other people, and when your heart's at war with people, you will bring out the worst in them. And so you can disagree and strongly work towards any political goal you want, and not bring out the worst in other people, basically, and see them as human, even if you think they're very misguided, very wrong. But to your point about getting excitement, getting traction for things, I think there is a very important point for overcoming toxic polarization is more people learning to drum up people's passions without it turning into an us versus them fight, right? It's like, because I think it's entirely possible, like we've seen examples, there's plenty of examples of people getting people passionate about things without it turning into an us versus them animosity driven thing. And I think that's part of the challenge, because it's much easier to drum up anger than it is to do the hard work of getting people's passions another way. That's why it's so, that's why politicians reach for it. It's let's rile up the base with some anger at the other side, right? It's like, well, I think you can achieve the same result by focusing your anger less on the people and more on the ideas, right? It's like,
right.
And that's a big shift in language, right? It's like being hard on ideas and soft on people, as they say in the conflict resolution space. Yeah.
It's definitely, I love that. We had you booked on for today, but for anybody who's not watching this live, we are recording this live right now on June 13th. And around this time over the last few days on Twitter, especially atheist Twitter, there's been a massive debate going on pertaining actually to a topic that I talk about on nearly every single episode of our streaming series that we do here, kind of pick one bullet or the other, pick your poison. There's been, unfortunately, and I'm not going to get too into the exact details. That's either for another episode or maybe for an AFL special video, because this thing just blew up the spaces of Twitter that we operate in. This idea of, okay, well, if we want to stop the religion of wokeism, that's how we kind of describe woke ideology and extreme social justice ideology here from that kind of context, we have to now kind of submit to Christianity, or we have to submit to organized religion and
I saw that.
Christianity.
Yeah.
That thing has just been, it's been going crazy on our feed, and I've noticed that it's just for some people, and I wouldn't even say this is for the majority, but definitely for some people, it's just sexier for you to pick that automatic one side or the other, one extreme or the other. You can't. Apparently, it's not cool enough to not be extreme and to not be rational and free thinking to try to come to a solution about these problems. You automatically have to go to said one dogma or the other. Because one might be better than the other.
Or we need the power of that other group, their passion to fight the passion of the people we dislike. Yes. Right.
Despite the fact that then once that passion is then used to defeat that other group, then that group's going to have to be fought against because we're going to disagree with that group.
Yeah, I got a lot to say about all that.
It's just an endless loophole. Maybe I'll have you on more. We're starting to actually have a few guests come on more than once to talk about these very subjects, because that one debate and that one discussion is going to be had on this channel like over the next like 2 to 3 years. I just know it.
Yeah, I responded to that piece that I'm pretty sure you're talking about, that everybody's talking about. I responded to that Twitter thread with some depolarization ideas. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know if you want to talk about it now or you're just referencing.
We can talk about it now.
I would just say real quick about that. It's like, I think that's the very fundamental dynamic of polarization, right? It's like we see the other side as so bad that we are willing to either put up with or join forces with the people that we don't agree with and think are extreme on our side, because we see them more now as our brethren. And so that's how polarization progresses. It's like on both sides, it can be an instinct to be like, well, we hate them so much, we'll join up with these people over here, even though we don't really like them either, right? Like, and I think that's the fundamental, a big point in my book and some of the podcast work I've done is, it's like our instincts about how to solve problems or defeat the other side are just completely wrong. Like, our social instincts are precisely what drive these such ubiquitous conflicts, and why they get so out of control, and why you end up with, like, genocide, civil war, whatever it is. It's like that these instincts are exactly how these things reach an extreme point, because instead of more people being like, we can criticize while remaining respectful, you have more people being like, this is this is a good versus evil war. We have to pick a side and we have to join up with where I would say, to me, the ideas of conflict resolution and actually getting your political goals passed are exactly the same, because all you're going to do is create lose-lose situations by taking this polarized binary view of like, we got to join up with the fundamentalist Christians or whatever, the thing is, or, so instead of doing the much harder, more mature work of saying, like, can we criticize these people and make persuasive arguments? And if more people did that, then we would get our, we would actually not have to, we would actually bring the anger down, because
Right.
the anger riling up is exactly what creates the very things people are angry about, right? Like when you have righteous anger against somebody, you're creating their righteous anger, right? It's not like these are not things in a vacuum. I think that's the thing people don't see is like you are helping create the very things you're angry about. Like the right or the left's righteous anger on whatever topic does not exist in a vacuum. It's partially formed by the views they have of the extremity on the other side. And so the more you tamp down the extremity on your own side, the more you tamp down the extremity on the other side, the righteous anger on the other side. So, you know, we wouldn't be fighting over so many things we fight about without the anger element of you know, so I think it, you know, that's a very fundamental thing of like, we help create the very things that we're angry about, right?
Yes.
And that's a big point in my book. Like one, I'd say the main point, yeah.
I've also conceded to this point recently, and this is where I've been active on Twitter, trying to tell people that, you know, it's okay that, like, granted, Atheists for Liberty is doing very well. We're having an increasing audience. Our membership count is growing. But there are some people that were in the atheism debate maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago who just might not be, we're not in the atheism fight anymore. Just because, not because of anything that took down the atheist movement, and that's a big reason for a lot of people, but for some people, they just lost interest. And it's okay if you lose interest in one fight and you get involved in another, or you're involved in some other kind of movement, or you have a different interest in the political arena. But I think some people just, that this anger kind of got fueled up because people got a thrill and a bit of dopamine out of, you know, owning the religious online. You know, seeing these clips 10 years ago, Christian gets owned by atheists. And then, you know, social justice, a few years later, social justice activist or feminist or Black Lives Matter activist gets owned by free thinking rationalist individualist.
Yeah.
And some people then just think, oh, well, there's no need for atheism anymore, or there's no need to debate wokeism or things like feminism anymore. Really? I don't know about that. I think you are just not interested in that. You're not interested in that debate. These topics are being discussed all the time still.
Well, yeah,
you're not getting that high.
Well, that's a good example too of like, you know, we're, you know, Christians owning atheists, atheists owning Christians. Like you're helping fuel the very, you know, instead of focusing on like, let's be respectful and be persuasive and actually like win some people over who might be in the middle, you know, on either side. Like that's what I mean by like the conflict resolution principles and the persuasion, you know, actually doing politics. They actually align because so many people just kind of give up on persuading the undecided. And they're just, let's just speak to the choir. And like, let's not even try to persuade people who might be undecided. And so they kind of give up, you know, I think that's what extreme emotions, extreme polarization does to us. It prevents us or makes us less likely to see the value in even persuading people, or, you know, it mainly becomes about like virtue signaling to, you know, to the people that already agree with you. I mean, you see this a lot in the vegan community too, animal rights community, where so many people just spend their time insulting, you know, meat eaters and such. And it's like, do you really think that's you know, so many of these causes, it's like, you're just driving people away and making them more committed to whatever they already believed, right? Like all sorts of research shows shaming people and insulting them is like the surefire way for driving them further into the things they already believed, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it gets back to like people just lose their patience for the harder route of actually persuading people. And you know, like you said, like there's plenty, the work on any political idea or philosophy is not done. Like clearly there's many people who disagree about all sorts of things, and there's many undecided people, and there's more people, you know, being born every day. So it's the remaining committed to being respectful and persuasive, I think is important for anybody who wants to achieve something.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and that debate is only going to continue. Maybe we'll have to have you on for a second time just to discuss that. But we'll begin by going through comments and questions. I know that'll evolve into even more discussions as it is. But okay, literally our first comment is yes. Like that, like Norgon of Orc, like this, like just genius. Like before we even go live, it's just that, like that 4:08 p.m. like 4 hours before we go live on EST. Jenny's already saying this is going to be a great stream. I'm finding this to actually be really fun because this is one of my. This is a stream where I feel like we can just go from one subject to another here. I really like that. Hey, Rolling. Hope you're doing well. Hey, Mars. We got Justin tuning in as well.
Justin.
And Justin actually just asked a question here. Justin asks, can you discuss left-leaning contributions to polarization?
Yeah, I mean, I can. I write about it in my book. I talk about it on Twitter. I think, and because I'm more on the left, one of the points I make in the book, and other people, not just me, but I think it's important to see how we cannot influence the other side. Like in an extremely polarized environment, you can really only influence people on your side. And I've had people, when they really realize that point, like it's completely changed, like how they interact online, how they behave. Because when you start seeing the point that, if you're a liberal, like you're not going to change conservatives by criticizing them, by judging them, by whatever. Like they're going to interpret your criticisms through the worst possible lens. They're going to think you have malicious, bad reasons for criticizing them. So to me, it gets to the point of, well, how do we work on polarization then? To me, we work towards depolarization by criticizing divisive and unreasonably divisive rhetoric, behavior of people on our side, people who are politically similar to us.
Right.
And we do that, and we try to point, when we do that criticism, we can try to point to why we do that. We don't do it just to be like, you're wrong. We do it to say, I may even greatly agree with you, but the way you're speaking is increasing our divides and helping create the very things that you're angry about, and point to this kind of polarization research and thought, right? So that, that's kind of like the segue into why I spend time criticizing divisive aspects of the left. I don't do it just to be like, some people will interpret that in an extremely polarized environment. Some people will always interpret that as like, well, that means you're a conservative, right? Or right. And same on both sides. If you criticize your own side, there will be very polarized people who'll be like, okay, that means I understand your beliefs because you wouldn't criticize these things otherwise. But for people who are genuinely curious about it, I mean, I list a lot of resources in my book for conservatives and liberals to understand, people on their own side, progressives or conservatives on their own side, who have talked about divisive aspects of the left and right. Like, so it's important to be able to see these things more clearly and say, for example, even leaving apart beliefs, the extremity of beliefs entirely, like Erica Edelson wrote the book Beyond Contempt, and she's a very progressive person, much more progressive politically than I am, and her whole book is about the insulting and condescending ways that liberals speak about conservatives, about Trump voters, very good examples, and talking about the dynamic that we can't be blind to the way our insulting language drives these divides and helps create the very things we dislike, right? And the conservative people could write the same book. Even some quite conservative people have written books about this stuff on the right. But yeah, I think it's important to be able to see these things and be willing to examine them, and not just say, well, I think the other side is worse, so I don't want to examine it, right? Because I think that's one of the big points too in my book is saying you can continue thinking one side is much worse while seeing how both sides contribute to the divides, right? Like it doesn't mean examining your side's role in it, or even your own role in it, in these dynamics, which I think we all, so many of us contribute to. Like I contributed to it when Trump got elected. I was saying all sorts of insulting things about Trump voters, and I think that was, and I started realizing like, hey, I'm part of the problem. So I think it just takes some willingness to examine these things and say, I can continue thinking one side is worse. I can continue working on my political goals, but I can examine how the things I say or people on my side say are disrespectful, are helping drive the divides, are ramping up the tensions, are helping create some of the, very things we're upset about. I think the more people that do that, and I think it's really, some of these things are pretty subtle, right? Like, I'll give you an example, of a subtle example, which not many people, liberals, would agree with me maybe, but when Biden and it's become a regular thing for, I think it's almost like something they agreed upon or something, where it's like, we're going to refer to the Republicans or the Trump supporting brand of Republicans as the MAGA Republicans, right? Like, you see that everywhere now.
The
But like,
ultra MAGA, I think
they do that too. But even just like Biden started it out, I think, in a few months ago with a speech where he was referring to MAGA Republicans a bunch of times, and it just became kind of a brand thing where, and then ultra MAGA stuff too. But I think even just the MAGA Republicans is perceived by many people as insulting, because it's almost like he's saying anybody that likes the idea of Make America Great Again, or any Trump voter, is as extreme as the kind of people that stormed the Capitol building, right? It's kind of like lumping them into this a wide swath of people, right? And I have examples in my book where actual reactions on Twitter of like a Trump voter being like, I just want lower taxes and I want America to be a good place, and now you're telling me I'm an extremist, like. Right. That's the kind of reaction this like uncareful language does, and there's example of this everywhere, like where, and some of these people do this, purposefully. But I think, that this kind of like uncareful, the other group is all the same kind of language. And John Wood from Braver Angels wrote a piece, and I think it was like USA Today, maybe, or Time, I can't remember, about like examining that polarizing aspect of like MAGA Republicans, and you see that everywhere now. Like, I see so many, Hillary Clinton's using it, all these people using it. And, I think for people that care about reducing American divides and reducing, if you're politically passionate, if you hate Trump and you care about reducing some of the more extreme stuff, like, I think you should be willing to examine how polarization dynamics work and see how these things that may pass without notice to you, because once you start getting tuned into them, they'll become more obvious to you. But all these things that add to our divides, and once you start seeing those things, you can speak in much less depolarizing ways while working towards your political goals. Like, I just think it's really disappointing to me how many people, how many politicians, how many media journalists, pundits just don't seem to care about talking to people who are not like themselves, right? Like, is it that hard to try to speak to people that are not like us and try to build persuasive and respectful arguments? It seems pretty easy to me, but it must be harder than I think. I don't know.
For others, it's hard because also they've just done it for so many years. Like, I've just grown up.
The incentives are
internet counterculture. I'm in my 10th year of it already. So it's just something that my brain is so innately used to.
And the incentives are so messed up for all the media, social media, real news media, politicians. The incentives are just too polarized, right?
Very much so.
Yeah.
We got Mars asking, Zach, is it possible to discuss anything with someone who's already impunged your intentions? I find once that's been done, the conversations I have don't go anywhere, as my moral position is in question.
I think it is possible. I think it requires taking kind of a higher road and kind of turn the other cheek, to quote a Christian phrase. I think it takes some discipline, right? Like, if you're slapped, you want to slap people back, right? Like, I get slapped a lot online, but I've gotten used to it, and I just kind of like, you'd be surprised how many conversations I've had online that started with somebody just like saying the worst things to me, and then I just remained calm and was like, yeah, but what about this, or try to explain what I was saying in a respectful way, and they were like, oh, I'm so sorry I said that, like, I shouldn't have been so disrespectful to you. I had one person say, like, my mom's really sick and I've just been really stressed, like the things people are dealing with, like, come out online, right? Like, we're the worst people online, especially in person's different, but I think you're less likely to have people do those really horrible things to you in person, because we're more generous in person. But I would say, if I think it takes growing a certain, like, taking pride and not getting triggered easily, right? It's like, what am I really being? What am I gaining by like getting angry, right? Like what does it really matter? Like what this person says to me, you know, I don't have to hang out with them if I don't want to. I don't have to see them if I don't want to. Like, especially if it's somebody online, like, what does it matter if I just try to be like, take this really diffusing, peace building approach to them and be like, I'm just going to try to make the most, speak to them in the language they would use in the most persuasive way possible and just go for it, you know, and as opposed to letting them trigger you. But, also I would say if somebody, there's also a time where you just got to walk away. Like, you know, it's like, there's nothing wrong with walking away. Like a lot of people who insult me, I just don't reply to. Like I literally don't read many of my replies because it's too toxic on Twitter. But you know, yeah, at a certain point you should just walk away because if somebody is just insulting you, like that is not a good time to try to have a substantive debate.
Yeah, your mental health isn't going to take it too much. It's going to be raw. And
and the other person's not in the right space, right? Like you could try, like maybe you could try once and be like, hey, no, you know, try your best to have like one more time, have a conversation that they keep doing and just be done with it. But sometimes you can diffuse it. I mean, it all depends on like how much you really want to invest. I would say if we're talking about online stuff, I think so many people invest an unbelievably ridiculous amount of time arguing online. Like, what do you think you're doing, right? Like anything you would do in the real world, trying to help the world would be better than the, you know, however long you're spending online arguing with people. Like, are you really doing anything arguing with people online? I get back to that a lot where it's like, how many millions of man hours, people hours, excuse me, are we wasting in America fighting online, right? Like,
right.
I just imagine if everybody went out and did something in their community with that time or something, you know, like, it's, yeah, I'm frustrated, as you can tell.
Yes. Well, I appreciate that frustration because it allows, number one, it's just great content. Number two, getting a rile out of people. But also it there really are things that are questioning, that I'm questioning here. I think I've kind of been the same way. I used to, when I got my start in the atheist community years ago, I would post a meme about religion, or I would post something about opposing social justice being injected into the atheist community. My entire Facebook thread will just be blown up with woke people, mainly woke people, but also religious apologists and stuff like that, trying to go at me. And I would spend every waking moment, any break that I had, anytime I wasn't talking with family members during holidays,
it's addictive too. Yeah,
you know, just typing in the comments. And I'm very still much, you know, as president of Atheists for Liberty, I want to communicate with people. I'm still very much a skeptic. I am in all those spaces still, but simultaneously, I guess when you do that stuff for 10 years, it just becomes tiresome. So sometimes I will admit I ignore half of the comments. But speaking of comments, by the way, everybody, if you're watching this as a recording later on, feel free to make comments below about your takes on what we're discussing here. We do have people, myself included, that come on the company account, and we heart react to the comments, and we do reply. I'm just saying, for the sake of my own health and my own time, I don't personally respond to every comment all the time. It's just it gets too tedious, and it just doesn't.
Well, it takes a lot of time, right? Like I was going to say, for your purposes, or anybody that spent, you know, does, because debating can be good. I think what I try to focus on is like, what's the most useful way, you know, like I might reply to somebody that has a lot of followers or gets a lot of reactions on their tweet or something before I would like reply to some random person with 10 followers or something, right? Like it's all just about like prioritizing your own time, because you definitely don't want to like, it's all about not getting sucked into the addictive nature of social media, I guess, and being like, is this the best way to convince people of my viewpoints, right? Like that, and that's always hard to know, right? Because these days there's so many things we theoretically could be doing. You know, it's almost like we have too many choices of things to do, right? Yeah.
Fortunately. We got even more questions coming up. I'm very happy to see it, guys. We got Rolling asking, out of curiosity, do you have an opinion on the book, How to Talk to a Science Denier?
I do not know that book.
Well, guys, we might have to do an AFL book review. We have an editorial board. Rolling's on the editorial board, actually, everybody. Maybe we can go ahead and do that sometime, or maybe get somebody who has read the book on the channel sometime. But thank you, rolling for asking. We got Justin asking again, can you comment on, I'll just say his name because we haven't gotten in trouble for saying his name yet. Can you comment on Nick Fuentes, Zach? We at Atheists for Liberty had run-ins with his followers at events. Have you engaged with his people online? I'll just quickly also mention something before you answer. As of the last 24 hours, we on Instagram came out with our Atheist Survival Guide to surviving Groyper attacks. So that's up on our Instagram, actually, everybody. So if you go to Instagram and you search up at Atheists for Liberty, you will be able to find us, find that Groyper survival guide there, and you could also go to atheistsforliberty.org, and that is that's available on there as well. But I'll bring up Justin's comment again. Yeah, so if you can comment on Nick Fuentes, and we have had run-ins with him and his Groypers at events. I don't know if you know too much about that extreme.
Yeah, I mean a bit. It's been a while since I've really spent much time looking at that stuff, so I don't have too much to say about him other than, you know, seems pretty horrible. But I don't. Other than that, I don't know what else to say about him.
Gotcha. Well, we have plenty of content on that coming up.
You all, it seems like you all fight with everybody because
unfortunately, not everyone likes our mission. Extremists of all kinds and
right.
theocrats of all kinds, they're not fans of what we do. So we just get all this wonderful attention online. It's just fantastic. Infiltrations, you name it.
Yeah, it's like probably like my stuff or depolarization work in general. You get a lot of hate from people across the of all sorts. Yeah,
maybe we'll attract some of your haters and we can share them. So like know, sharing is caring. We'll give you a few of our critics. You can give us a few of yours.
Maybe we could have a special broadcast just for the haters.
That would be, you know what, guys, Tom's team, make it happen. We're gonna make that a thing. I am so down for that. I saw, Zach, you were having a drink. I might join you and have a drink myself while we do that. It's not gonna harm us at all, everybody. But that, you know what, that would actually be funny.
That'd be funny. Like advertisers, like, if you hate the work we're doing, come on in.
Come on in. We'd love to have you.
We'd love to have you.
That's one thing actually that the Groypers do. That are so and some of these extremes. They'll just pile on and get their supporters, to
get the mob in there.
Get the mob in there. And that's what was so great when we launched. So all these kind of woke people who took over the atheist community, or the old atheist movement, the former atheist movement, when they kind of destroyed that, and then when they found out that this Atheists for Liberty thing popped up, so many people dogpiled on us that's how others within the atheist community, or what remained of it, who liked what we were doing, found out about us. So you have some of these extremists, the Groypers too, they did it for us as well.
They'll promote you
favor by targeting us.
But yeah, that's the interesting thing too. Getting back to these polarization dynamics, it's like the us versus them animosity makes us promote the very people we hate, right? Like, it's like we are doing them a favor. It's kind of like, Marjorie Taylor Greene, like, I always ask myself when I'm thinking about any extreme person that I don't like, and I'm like, I have an impulse to be like, can you believe what they're saying? And I'm like, why am I gaining anything from giving them attention, or am I giving them more power? Right. Like, I think that's a question we all should ask ourselves. It's like, especially on social media, when you people quote tweet stuff and they're helping these people in the algorithm. Like, this fundamental thing, it's like, you are helping them gain an audience. You're not only drawing more attention to them and getting more haters, which, get, like you say, gives them more power, more clout. You're also just fundamentally in the algorithm, giving them more clout in the algorithm. So it's like, I think that's such a fundamental aspect of, like, we express animosity towards these extreme people on the other side. And then, via that route that we were talking about before, of like, we think to fight the other side, we got to join up with these extreme people on our side. Mm-hmm. So then by promoting these extreme people and causing the big fight around them, that causes people on both sides to be like, well, we have to be brethren with the extreme people on our side, right? Like, they're not that bad. They're still worse than those people.
They're still worse than those. So we're going to ignore any of their sins.
All these dynamics are just these feedback mechanisms of, like, continually driving this wedge in us, right? And and sharing the people we hate. It's like, I did that with I would post depolarization stuff to James Lindsay, and he would like quote tweet me. So he was like basically helping me get more audience, which I appreciated. But he was just like out of his anger, he'd be like basically insulting me, and I was just posting like depolarization aimed messages and criticizing his like very divisive language, and he would just be like kept quote tweeting me. And I'm like, I appreciate that. Like I thank you for that, because it's more people that might actually be like, hey, this guy's got something interesting to say, So
one thing we want to actually do is we want to launch debates on the channel as well. So maybe if there's something that you and James would be interested in debating, I'd be more than happy to maybe have Atheists for Liberty facilitate that.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I'd be up for it. I would definitely try to take a meta level approach, because I mean, I think on a lot of these debates, I'm not arguing. Yeah, people try to drag it down into like the specific beliefs, whereas like I'm trying to operate on this meta level of like, can we work towards the things we care about while not seeing the other side as like evil monsters, right? Like
I'm kind of the same way. Like I'm not
like
the biggest debater too. Like I like to facilitate. I like to showcase the greatest minds of the 21st century. That is kind of been my model.
Well, you went down a notch on this one, but I appreciate you inviting me.
We got a Facebook ask. Thank you, Brian. We got Brian David asking, it's funny you mentioned the argument that anti-woke atheists need to partner with the religious right to stop wokeism. A friend just sent me this article yesterday, which made me, exactly that argument. I think that's the article as well.
That's the same
Zach,
one
you were talking about. I was commenting on Twitter about that article too. So, Brian, we are going to get into that article sometime as an organization. Because we have been paying attention to that piece very much. The author of it has been trying to interact with me quite a bit on Twitter as a result of this. So that is something that we will probably, unfortunately, have to respond to. It's not something that I will take great pleasure in responding to. But
maybe I could talk to him from a depolarization perspective.
I dig that. That would work. I like that. AFL approved right there. The alcohol's not even in my system, guys. I'm drinking water, and I'm already having so much fun with that idea. Advisory board moment, maybe. I don't know. We'll have to see. But
yeah, like you say, it's like use some conflict for the greater good. Like I'm always looking for ways to create conflict, but for the aim being depolarization. So
that's how we are at AFL. Like we admit we are reactionary at some moments. Like when we make clips of these streams, we do use certain language, we use certain thumbnails, we do that stuff, but it is in the name of educating people and trying to bring people together. So it's okay.
Yeah, it's definitely the media environment you're left to deal with these days. You gotta try to get some excitement going for sure. Yeah.
We got Rolling explaining about that book, How to Talk to a Science Denier. He says that the book was a subject on the Michael Shermer show with the author as a guest. If you're interested, well, thank you, Rolling. Definitely, we'll put that in consideration. And we have Rolling saying that I would love to see AFL host debates. I concur, sir. And then we have Justin saying something is wrong on the internet. Yeah. Well, when is it anything not wrong on the internet?
Oh, is that the meme of people looking at something online and being so, something I gotta talk, something's wrong on the internet. Yeah.
We got that Snorgon guy back saying AFL represent. I got to admit, I appreciate you being the first commenter, the first person in the live chat. Really, you're a top-notch supporter here. So really that means a lot. And we want more of you, by the way. Marketing moment to join Atheists for Liberty today, to become members, to get into our Discord. We have like very similar fun discussions like we're having right now, but with so many of you in our Discord voice channel chat, sometimes with drinks in hand, with cameras on. We play games on Wednesday nights. We're doing Jackbox games a lot more, actually, and they're a lot of fun. And then we also do these discussion nights on Sundays. We stream documentaries. We do so many amazing things because a lot of you believe in us and our mission, and also what we're trying to do to promote community. We have in-person events that are going on. We had one in New York City. We had one in Dallas. We're going to be having more throughout the country. And we're going to be releasing some more information about where Thomas Sheedy is going to be going throughout the summer and the fall. So more information on that to come, but it's through all of you becoming members of Atheist Liberty that makes more of this possible. And also, we take all of your ideas seriously. We have an ideas channel in the Discord server. So if you're like, I think AFL should do this, I think Thomas should host this person, I think we should discuss this more, we take it seriously. You guys are paying the $12 per year. By the way, only $12 per year, marketed as $1 a month. You know, you're still paying that $12. We want to take you seriously. We want to show you that you're getting your bang for your buck. So again, really appreciate all of you going out of your way, going to atheistliberty.org and becoming a part of the movement, because we need you. So continuously, going through these things. Oh, we got Lance saying, I never have drinks on game night. Well, that's because, Lance, you're responsible. And you're also several time zones behind me. So you're excused, sir, okay? Even though I have more work to send to you, Lance has been instrumental in our finance committee. So I just want to say hi to Lance. Appreciate that. And then we got Rolling also saying that atheists owning people followed an SJW owned video summarized my early teens. That was me too. That's kind of how I got into the culture wars. It was actually around 10 years ago, around June, July, and August of 2013 that I started to binge atheist content on YouTube. And I started to then become very active in the atheist community. So it's just amazing to see how things have come since then in the culture wars, how divided and polarized we've kind of gone since then. But it's also amazing to see how many people still believe in the cause that we're trying to promote here. So it really means a lot, everybody. We'll get off in around 9 minutes, but I also will do a few advertisements as we get more comments and questions coming in. We also have a Facebook page, everybody. So go to facebook.com/atheistliberty. Go like us on Facebook. And by the way, so I know that some of you are now watching this through Facebook, because we're also not only streaming this to YouTube, we're streaming this to Twitter and Facebook as well. And we're going to be streaming to more platforms in the future. But for the majority of you that are watching on YouTube right now, be sure to go to this channel and subscribe, to like the video and hit the notification bell to see more content. You're not only going to be getting streams on this channel from myself, where we're interviewing the greatest minds of the 21st century, but also I do review content of other videos, of articles, of things like that, kind of like a Tim Pool style mantra. I've been doing that more and more recently on the channel. We're going to be doing a lot more announcements as well, panels, debates. We really do take that ideas channel on Discord seriously. And so the more of you that are able to tune in on YouTube, the better it is. You help the algorithm, and the channel's monetized as well. We take super chats. Follow us on Twitter as well at Atheist Liberty. Our Twitter has been blowing up, specifically this week, especially with all the discussions, particularly about atheism and religion that you're seeing online. Some of you are recommending those threads that are happening on there. It really does mean a lot as well. And then, of course, with the guides that we put out, the graphics that we put out, more content that we put out too, with the imagery that we have that Instagram page that you could follow us at Atheists for Liberty. Let me think. We're also on Rumble. I have not made a Rumble announcement on here yet, but we upload everything to Rumble. So if you have a Rumble account, be sure to subscribe on the Rumble account. And we're on LinkedIn. We have a professional LinkedIn page, everybody. We're going all in with the extra professionalism. Parler shut down. So we used to advertise our Parler in our videos, but we don't have a Parler anymore because there is no Parler anymore. So we replaced that with LinkedIn. So we can give you a LinkedIn recommendation on liking a meme. That'll be like the top-notch thing for your career. That's going to be a skill endorsement. Zach, I really got to appreciate and thank you for coming on the show. Just as a Justin Vakula recommendation alone, this has actually been one of the most entertaining discussions I have had on this channel. I'm very happy to see that you really do understand the dynamics that are happening here within the culture wars. It is facing the atheist community in droves. It's facing what remains of this cultural divide on religion in droves. And often when I have guests on the show, when I talk about this kind of thing of choosing, which extreme is better, I feel like I almost have to educate people every now and then on what we're facing, when with you, you've already seen it many times over. You're a professional who talks about this on a regular basis. So much so, by the way, everybody, please go follow Zach Elwood on Twitter. His Twitter is in the description of this video below, and his website is there below. I wanted to just make that little segment, and then we got another question from Justin coming in. But Zach, I don't know if you wanted to follow.
Yeah, no, thanks, Thomas. I appreciate you having me on. It's an honor, and yeah, thanks, Justin, for hooking this up. I really appreciate it. And I will say too, while we're on the subject of my stuff, in my book, Diffusing American Anger, which is available at american-anger.com and on Kindle right now. I haven't done the paperback yet. I'm still working on editing it a little bit more. But I have a section on like religion and spirituality and how the divide there. So I basically, unlike what makes my book unique, is I actually go through a lot of different issues which I think a lot of people are understandably afraid to do that, because that's where you're going to get people hating you, right? But I try to walk through the issues not from a like here's what's right and wrong perspective, but to say, can you see the other side's perspective, and can that help you see how the other side are not monsters, basically? For the most part, obviously. So I do have that section on like religion and spirituality, because that's obviously a big part of the. That could have been a much bigger section, but I just did a little bit in there. But atheists, your atheist audience might like that section. Yeah.
We very much do, because we get attacked by various different extremes. And what's great about Atheists for Liberty is we try to attract non-religious Americans and non-religious people around the world of all types. I used to be kind of a Bill Maher classical liberal, and I have always regarded, in many cases, kind of moderate conservative types and libertarians as good, decent people. And then when I shifted a little more to the right, I saw my friends on that kind of moderate left, the same way. I've seen it all, and that's the amazing coalition that we have here within the Atheists for Liberty family. People who might have little disagreements here and there. But at the end of the day, we have an amazing mission, and we have an America where we want to have an America where the non-religious are common and celebrated. And that's what we're doing here. So I'll showcase two more questions and comments, and then we'll head off for the night. We got Alex saying that we also have a Steam account. We do actually also have a Steam account, and we're doing game nights, more different kinds of game nights in our Discord via that Steam account. So you can also add us on Steam too. I don't really maintain it as much. We have staffers that maintain it, but that means we have people that love to play Steam games with other atheists all night long. It's already happening in the Discord server. So how I'm promoting it is an understatement. And then we got Justin Vakula asking as well, do you have any comments on Ian Miles Trump? I feel like with just your facial expression there, you knew exactly. That's all you need. Like, let's do like a gotcha at the end. Right there.
Yeah, that's all you need. You just need my face for that one. Yeah, I mean, I share some of Ian's stuff on Twitter. I just find him completely absurd, because he regularly shares stuff that is completely obviously fake or debunked, and he shares all this conspiracy minded stuff. The most funny one where he shared some like industrial dairy explosion with like a conspiratorial. All these people share these like things about like, are all these explosions some some conspiracy that the elites are making things blow up across America, So he was kind of sharing it in that vibe, because he often shares like, it's so weird how things are blowing up lately, like trying to induce this like paranoia.
That's all organized, and
us versus them. Yeah, everything's yeah, and that was one of the more funny ones, because people were like, well, dried dairy, dried milk is extremely explosive. Like a lot of industrial things are extremely explosive, right? And he was like, I wasn't aware of that. But of course, and then he continues promoting all these like paranoid. He's just like the definition of a very polarized figure, where he only sees the worst on the other side. All he does is share like, these people are horrible. It's all, the other side is the entire enemy, right? Like, I think that's what defines a polarized mind, is like they're unable to see their side's contributions in the dynamics, right? And it's like, and then I think, getting back to the main idea is like, you can continue thinking one side is much worse, but to act like it's all due to the other side's evil nature or their inhumanity, and like there's nothing to say about your side, I think is where it gets really, but I will say also, like, I also understand why people are extremely polarized too. So I also cut people a lot of slack, because it's like, that's kind of the definition of polarization. It makes more and more people see the world and us versus them views, right? So it's like, I think part of depolarization is cutting people more slack, like even people like Ian Miles Jong, who I think is very unreasonable and often shares bad information. It's like, well, he is also a product of a very polarized environment, right?
So, most definitely.
I try to be understanding as much as I can, even as I criticize some of these people for being very divisive and unreasonable.
Well, maybe it's due to your understanding nature that I got to say, I really did enjoy having you on here, Zach. It really means a lot. We got to have you here in the future on the streams, and would love to get you in the Discord, and would love to get you involved in the Atheists for Liberty community. I got to say, Justin, you did a good job with that recommendation.
Thanks, Justin.
Thank you, Justin. This was a fantastic job. Well done. So everybody, thank you so much for tuning in today. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific for our next stream. We're going to be streaming every single week to bring you guys great content and to really showcase, again, the greatest minds of the 21st century. We really do want to promote ourselves to the best of our ability and to really show you all that you're getting your bang for a buck as supporters of our organization. Our existence is here to stay, and we want to continue defending what is right in this new age of reason. So be sure to, again, everybody, join Atheists for Liberty today at atheistsforliberty.org. Subscribe to the channel or whatever page you're watching on. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook and everything. And we will see you all next time.
Thanks, Thomas.